Roaring chainsaws like this signal the end of life of healthy trees like this giant silk cotton tree. What happens to this tree happens to many trees every day deep inside Nigerian forests. Indiscriminate felling of trees is creating one of the most disturbing ecological crises in Nigeria: deforestation. It is a big existential threat for the country and its people. Nigeria is a country whose geography offers its various types of forests, from coastal mangroves, evergreen rainforests, inland gallery forests, montane forests, rich savanna forests, and scrubs of the drylands. It is a big shame that statistics given by many organizations since 2005 showcase Nigeria to be losing an average of 3.7% of its forests annually. In 2023, the UN report crowns Nigeria as the global champion of deforestation. Most of the time, Nigeria's deforestation is attributed to forest removal for urban, industrial, commercial, and predominantly the demand for agricultural land use. Most of the time, people overlook the huge reliance of the country's population on fuel wood for cooking. This is a huge problem that needs to be researched. On this premise, 3 universities, namely the University of York, Bayero University Kano, and University College London, joined hands to deepen understanding of the extent to which overdependence on forests for cooking energy by households undermines Nigeria's ecological integrity and heightens its environmental vulnerability. Professor Lindsay Stringer of the University of York sheds more light.
A Royal Society funded project that's looking at improving access to clean and modern energy for cooking, while at the same time reducing land degradation and biodiversity loss in Nigeria. And this is a really important topic because Nigeria has got the largest population in Africa, but then at the same time less than 10% of its population have regular access to clean cooking fuels and technologies. Nigeria's government has committed to conserving forests and reducing land degradation, but obviously meeting those targets is challenged by the high proportion of people that are using fuel wood in cooking. And at the same time as well, cooking with wood has some quite significant health impacts, particularly for women and children. So what we want to do is, through the project and what we've been able to do so far is identify how progress can be made in improving access to clean and modern cooking energy whilst meeting these environmental goals as well.
An important question that the collaborating universities focused in the study was to determine forest changes between the year 2000 to 2020 and to unravel the key drivers of deforestation in Nigeria. Professor Robert Marchant of the University of York outlined some of these drivers.
So once forests have been opened up for fuel, for timber, for charcoal, then often that land is then used for agriculture, and so that forest can't regenerate, or for pasture where animals, particularly cattle, will come into those forests, and again preventing regeneration of that forested land. The main driver is people, particularly for energy, for building materials, and all of their agents, particularly cattle, and transitions to agriculture.
Although the dividing line between forest exploitation for fuel wood and other uses is very thin, the overall impacts of forest loss are far-reaching in space and time.
So once an area has been cleared from forest, it reduces its ability to provide non-timber forest products as a source of bushmeat or hunting. As those forests become increasingly degraded, and also impacting on things such as the ability of those forests to mitigate flooding, to store less carbon, to have less biodiversity within them. So it's really impacting on the whole of that forest composition, the structure, and ultimately the economy. Those economic impacts are really acute, and particularly are impacting into that sort of short-term gain for long-term pain. So where the initial benefits will be accrued, people will get paid for the fuel, get paid for that deforestation, but those long-term impacts will be felt for many, many decades to come.
The Nigerian government has positively responded to the challenge of forest loss and damage for cooking through its National Clean Cooking Policy, launched in April 2024. This policy aims to effectively shift the current over-reliance on fuel wood by millions of households in Nigeria to transition towards clean cooking energy. The Federal Ministry of Environment in Nigeria is leading this initiative.
At the federal level, but to also carry out sensitization and awareness creation across the states and the geopolitical zones.
The newly enacted cooking energy policy can help Nigeria reverse its massive deforestation identity, driven among others by fuel wood over extraction for cooking. It is always important to think of forests for art for their long-term and endless values for humans, climate, biodiversity, economy, and other benefits.
Yeah, well, I guess the main thing is, again, this is not just specific to Nigeria, but it resonates with many countries around the world. Forests are so much more important than a source of timber or a source of fuel. They provide countless benefits, and some of those benefits are directly to the communities that live around them, such as a source of protein, a source of medicinal plants, a source of sustainable building materials, a place of sustainable fuel, wood, but also those wider regulatory services, such as carbon storage, such as water regulation, enhancing soil fertility, maintaining nutrient flows across the wider landscape. So managed well, managed sustainably, those forests can provide so much more than just a single resource. And again, we need to work with a whole range of stakeholders at a whole range of different levels, from the stake to the region to the local, to really encourage those forests to be thought of in a completely different way, where their resources are maximised and not impacted on by a simple one-off impact, which is massive and cascades across all of those benefits that the forests provide to communities near and far.
Professor Lindsay Stringer re-echoes the same concerns raised by her colleagues.
So any kind of shift towards cleaner energy needs to take into account the livelihood impacts it will have for those people within that wider value chain, to make sure that they're not left without any source of livelihood, and to make sure that their incomes can continue.
For a study of this nature that involves land, forests, people, biodiversity, it is imperative to engage with multiple stakeholders. And that's what we exactly did. Right from the beginning, from the drawing board, we carried along the policymakers, people from federal and state ministries of environment and other agencies. The businesses such as bakery owners, we also engaged with hunters, for instance, blacksmiths, all people whose livelihood, revolves around the forest. We made sure that at some levels, we enable them to call the shots. And one of the things I think that was fundamental to our success, again, I believe, is the use of local language. So we spoke with the people in the what I would call regional lingua franca Hausa, and because most of these communities could speak Hausa, and that I think that facilitated their abilities to say their minds at each and every stage of the project. And again, fundamental to this process of co-creation, I think, giving women voices to say their minds. For most of our meetings, we made it necessary that women should constitute 50% of participants in some of the workshops that we run. And this is very important. You can't do anything around forest without women, especially in north central Nigeria. Women really play a critical role really in exploiting, in protection, in also use of food for cooking. And sometimes women also are the people who are hit hardest when you talk about negative consequences of deforestation. So really it is very necessary for any research of this kind to make sure that stakeholders, people from grassroots, policymakers, businesses, everyone is carried along.
The researchers from the collaborating institutions ensured that the voices of women were heard throughout the project. This immensely helped the study team to understand the involvement of women in every aspect of fuel wood and charcoal production, supply chains, and search for sustainable cooking energy in Nigeria. Particularly in Kaduna, Nasarawa, and Abuja, the women participating in the study were given good platforms in the processes.
As far as women are concerned with regards to use of firewood, which of course is one of the main source of energy for cooking, for heating, and as a means of livelihood to some women in some instances, it's very important that research focus on alternative livelihood options. Now, most of our forests are being degraded because of population, because of competition over forest resources. Farmers are clearing more lands, more areas that are forests before are now being converted to other uses for agriculture, to be able to feed the growing population, and then there is massive reduction in forest resources. Now, most of firewood that are being extracted are either being sold or utilized if they are being extracted in small scale. Women usually in northern Nigeria participate in firewood extraction to cook, to sell. That's means of livelihood. Now it's changing. If there are no fuel, there is high demand. Even though in some areas in northern Nigeria there is still abundance of forest resources, most of the trees are being felled and converted for charcoal production. And then areas where they don't have large amount of forest trees, they now resort to using firewood. So women participate in these activities. They extract the wood. Most of them, they go and extract the wood, and then most of them sell the wood. In cases where men go and extract, the women still participate in selling firewood or forest resources to sustain livelihood. So research focus should focus on how to find alternative livelihood options instead of relying so much on forest resources, which of course is being degraded over time. If you look at areas like part of Nasarawa State, you visit areas like part of Awe, there is massive destruction of forest resources. Large expanse of forests are being converted for agricultural use, and in some areas for mining activities. So it's really degrading the environment, and then it's it's rendering, even farmers are finding it difficult because it's making the soil vulnerable to erosion, and then of course it's threatening food security.
The success of this collaborative research project is seen in its acceptance by multiple stakeholders. His Royal Highness Ibrahim Usman Jibril, the Emir of Nasarawa Emirate in north-central Nigeria, who was Nigeria's former Minister of Environment, is passionate about promoting clean cooking through briquettes and biofuel production.
The main goal is to reduce or possibly eliminate deforestation. What we've done today is to show that when you don't give people alternative, you can hardly stop them from the old ways that they are doing. You recall the federal government is working on a project, the pipeline project from the south to the northern part of the country. Once that is completed and you have sufficient gas that is cheap, it will assist in a way in stopping people from. When you have a clean energy in the house, you don't have to go about looking for firewood that your eyes will be smoking. So the university is on the right track. That's what they are supposed to be doing, and they are doing it well. I'm happy. Not because I am a graduate there, but because it is the reality on the ground. And we, in our modest way, in our small settlements, we are putting it into practice. Collaborating with the university now will give us a broader perspective. The academicians, we are not the eggheads, but the little we have acquired from the university, we are putting it into practice, and then you can move it forward. Like we produce the methane gas now. We've done a demonstration. The next thing is to get a compressor that will bottle it into portable ones so that people can purchase it. A kilo of this LPG now is over 1,000 naira. So that big channel that used to be about 12 is now about 50,000. So with this one that is cheap and near free, you can reduce the price of these things and people will use it. Our goal is to ensure that our women folk who are always at the receiving end are given a succor so that their health can be improved.